A teenager in Oslo just won a national science competition, the kind of win that headlines a school newsletter. He tells exactly one person. His mother finds out 3 days later by accident at a grocery store from another parent. This isn't one awkward kid avoiding attention. It's a pattern so consistent across an entire region that researchers have actually measured it, and what they found explains something most of us have never stopped to question about our own lives. Why would an entire culture collectively stop trying to impress each other? 7 specific reasons explain it, and Principle 4 will completely flip how you think about success. Before we go further, how much of your own day gets spent proving something to someone who probably doesn't even need the proof? Principle 1. The Law of Jante. There's a concept known across Nordic countries as Janteloven, the Law of Jante, first written down by a Danish-Norwegian novelist in the 1930s, as a set of unspoken social rules governing a small fictional town. The rules, at their core, all circle back to one idea: nobody gets to publicly claim they're better than anyone else. Not smarter, not more successful, not more important. This isn't a strict legal code anyone signs on to. It's something absorbed early, almost by osmosis, growing up in these cultures. A child who brags about winning a school competition often gets a subtler social correction than a child who stayed quiet about it, even in victory. The instinct to announce an achievement gets gently discouraged over time, replaced with a quiet preference for blending in. Jante teaches that public claims of superiority carry a real social cost. A specific material philosophy in Sweden takes this idea even further, though right down to how much food ends up on a plate. Principle 2, Lagom, just the right amount. Sweden has a word barely translatable into English, Lagom, meaning just enough, not too much, not too little. It shows up in everyday choices. Most outsiders wouldn't notice a car chosen for reliability rather than status. A home sized for actual need rather than impression. Excess isn't admired here the way it often is elsewhere. It tends to read as slightly excessive, even a little uncomfortable to witness. Someone driving a modest car in Stockholm isn't assumed to be struggling financially. They're simply assumed to want exactly what's useful, nothing more. This shows up even at a Swedish dinner table, where portions are often measured with care specifically to avoid waste on either end. Lagom keeps material life quiet and balanced. Emotional life gets balanced too, though, in a very different way, starting with how these cultures treat failure. Principle 3. Failure isn't hidden. It's expected. A small business in Denmark shuts its doors after a rough 2 years, and the founder doesn't vanish from social circles out of embarrassment the way many might elsewhere. Failure across much of Scandinavia isn't treated as something shameful to bury quietly. It's treated as a normal, even respected part of having actually tried something difficult. Danish schools reflect this directly in how they grade. The reasoning process behind an answer often matters more than getting the answer perfectly right on the first attempt. The fear of visibly failing in public, so common in many competitive cultures, simply carries far less social weight here. Without that constant fear hanging overhead, people tend to take real risks instead of only chasing guaranteed safe outcomes. Removing the fear of failure changes what people are willing to attempt in the first place. What happens next might be the most surprising principle of all, because success itself gets measured completely differently here. Principle 4. Success isn't measured by titles. Walk into an average workplace in Norway or Sweden, and picking out who holds the most senior title in the room by behaviour alone is often genuinely difficult. There's no separate executive floor, no reserved parking space marking status. No meeting exists where junior employees quietly defer before a senior one even speaks. Researchers studying Nordic workplace culture consistently describe this as a flat hierarchy, the social and behavioral distance between the most junior and most senior person in an organization measuring far smaller than in most other developed countries. This didn't emerge from a modern management theory. It's simply the workplace expression of a much older cultural discomfort with anyone acting like they're above the people around them. A colleague who listens carefully and follows through often earns more quiet respect here than one who simply issues instructions from a position of authority. Flattened hierarchies remove one obvious channel for seeking approval through rank. An even deeper habit sits underneath all of this, though the active choice to downplay real achievement rather than simply avoid chasing it. Principle 5. Downplaying achievement on purpose. A researcher in Finland who just published something truly significant might describe it to a neighbour as a little project I've been working on, not out of false modesty, but because overstating it out loud would feel deeply uncomfortable, almost like a social misstep. This habit runs deep enough that many Scandinavians instinctively minimize their own accomplishments in casual conversation without even thinking about it. Genuine praise, when it happens, tends to arrive privately and specifically one-on-one rather than as loud. Public celebration in front of a group. Someone noticing another person's real effort away from an audience tends to carry more weight here than any public recognition ever could. Downplaying achievement protects a sense of humility. Humility alone doesn't fully explain something else, though why so many Scandinavians also seem completely at ease with silence itself, something most other cultures find deeply uncomfortable. Principle 6. Comfort with silence. A group of friends in Finland can sit together for several minutes without a single word exchanged, and nobody in that room feels any need to apologize for it or fill the gap with small talk. In many cultures, a silent pause in conversation feels awkward, something that needs fixing immediately. In Finland specifically, and in much of the region more broadly, silence is simply treated as part of the conversation itself, not a failure of it. Words get used when they're genuinely needed, not as constant background noise meant to prove friendliness or engagement. This same comfort with quiet carries directly into how people work fewer meetings, padded with unnecessary talking. More focus on simply finishing the task at hand. Comfort with silence removes the pressure to constantly perform for an audience. That same quiet confidence connects directly to the final principle, the one that ties everything else together. Principle 7. Trust replaces the need to prove anything. Nordic countries consistently rank among the highest in the world for social trust in neighbours, trust in strangers, trust in institutions to simply function the way they're supposed to. Bicycles left unlocked outside shops. Strollers with sleeping babies left parked outside cafés while parents sit inside having coffee. These aren't signs of carelessness, they're signs of a society where constantly proving trustworthiness simply isn't necessary in the first place. When trust is assumed by default rather than earned through constant visible display, the pressure to impress anyone quietly starts to fade altogether. That single-shift trust replacing performance might be the real root sitting underneath all 6 principles that came before it. And that's really the quiet thread running through all 7 of these principles. None of them come from a lack of ambition or a lack of pride. They come from a culture that simply stopped needing public proof of either one. Here's the part worth sitting with. The hardest principle on this list probably isn't staying modest about success. It's sitting comfortably in silence without rushing to fill it with anything at all. And that single skill might reveal more about real confidence than any achievement ever could. If you're wondering which one of these 7 principles would actually change how you move through your own day, there's one video that walks you through exactly how to start, and it's on your screen right now.